Let's get the September 2024 Borough Board meeting for Staten Island started. Welcome, everyone. Marie should be joining us shortly. Should be joining a meeting that was running a bit late. If we could all rise and say the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And points to Jerry for the flag. Thank you so very much. Before we head into our presentations, just a bit of housekeeping, as Marie likes to call it. I sent out the agenda for today's meeting and the minutes from last June's meeting. I know that was 15 or so pages of fun and detail, but if I could have a motion to accept the minutes. Jerry and Elena, thank you. Great. And with that, oh, Frank, hey, how you doing? Good to see you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. I love that voice. If I could hand it off to Parks for your Vital Parks program.
Thank you, Brooke. Good afternoon, everybody. As you're well aware, many of you know, I'm Linda Riccardone. I'm the Staten Island Borough Parks Commissioner, and I'm excited to be here and help present the Vital Parks Initiative to the Borough Board this afternoon. Is anybody else getting feedback, or is it just me?
I think we're all good. It might have been just you, Linda.
Okay. All right. So I'll move right along. So like I said, I'm very excited to be here and help present the Vital Parks Initiative to the Borough Board this afternoon. So Vital Parks for All is New York City's parks vision to strengthening our city's health, environment, and communities through our park system. Really doesn't need to be said because we are the Borough of Parks and we know how much everybody loves the Borough of Parks here that's on this meeting and far and wide. So it's a citywide initiative, which we're amplifying across the 5 boroughs, and we are including it at all of our upcoming community board meetings. So before we begin, I'd like to take a moment and introduce the other parkies that are joining me today. We have, of course, Joe Holmesy, a Chief of Staff. We have J.C. Peoples, our Executive Projects Coordinator for Commissioner Donahue. And of course, we have our Chief Strategy Officer, Jen Hopper, who will be presenting today. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jen.
Thanks, Commissioner. And thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here today in the Borough of Parks, at least virtually. Big fan, especially of Fresh Kills. As the Commissioner said, everyone on this call knows that our parks are critical to making New York City livable. They improve our health, they improve the safety of our city, they protect us from extreme heat and expand our living areas. Everything happens in our parks. Getting fit, getting respite, vigils, community celebrations, and more. I'm getting an echo. Is anybody else? Maybe we all need to mute.
I was getting an echo also.
Okay. I'm not able, this is not advancing. Okay. So our parks are essential. You all are the Borough of the Parks. You've got close to 8,000 acres of parks and over 100,000 trees on your island. Throughout the city, we have 30,000 acres. Is everyone muting? Okay, great, thanks. Right, our parks comprise, or roughly the equivalent in size to the county of the Bronx citywide. That's an incredible amount. As I mentioned, they're helping us be more resilient in the face of severe and sudden storms. They're improving our air quality. They're unifying diverse constituencies across the city, at the basketball court, the dog run, on the trails. They help our economy, and they're critical to our mental and our physical health in this dense and frenetic city. Next. And they're more important than ever. We saw in across the city that during COVID, people were more dependent on their parks than ever. They were the safe place to go to gather. The Trust for Public Land did a recent study that showed in 2022 alone, there were 527 million visitors to our parks. That was 527 million visits to our parks by New Yorkers. That excludes tourists. We're seeing more severe and sudden storms. You all know full well that our park infrastructure is aging, much of it built during the building boom of the 50s, but a lot of it during the WPA era. And people are more anxious and lonely. Last year, the Surgeon General issued an advisory on the epidemic of loneliness and how it contributes not just to deteriorated mental health, but to deteriorating physical health. Next. So we want to protect the parks that everyone is so dependent on, that are so life-giving. So we've come up with this framework, as the commissioner mentioned, Vital Parks for All, investing in New York City's living infrastructure. It's living with people, with trees, with community. If you don't take care of living things, they wither and they ultimately can die. We don't want that to happen. We need them because we know they're critical to the flourishing of our city. Next. So just as we protect our roads and sewers, we need to protect our living infrastructure. So Vital Parks for All is our framework, an initial investment to deliver parks that people depend on to communities that need them most. It's our plan to protect deteriorating facilities, equitably deliver new resources, new amenities where they're missing, and engage and empower New Yorkers through our public programs and through information so they can celebrate, support their parks, and advocate for their parks. Next. So what are vital parks? We believe every single New Yorker deserves access within their own communities to parks that are clean and safe, green and resilient, and supported by engaged and empowered New Yorkers. Well-maintained parks ensure that they're well used, improving safety, deterring crime. Green and resilient, you all know full well the climate benefits, the climate change benefits and offsets that our parks and our trees can provide. And then obviously they're critical to mental health and well-being. And last but not least, engaged and empowered stewards are critical. You all in your leadership roles are key collaborators with us in empowering New Yorkers to strengthen their parks for the present and the future. Next. So what is a vital park system? We identified 21 elements that contribute to those 3 value pillars that I mentioned: clean and safe, green and resilient, and engaged and empowered. Under each category, there are multiple elements that align with that value pillar. Under clean and safe, obviously, things like a high park condition score. That means it's clean, it's well maintained, its elements aren't deteriorating or creating safety hazards. You've got things like public restrooms, drinking fountains. You've got park enforcement patrol deterring negative activity. And you've got cooling features. Under green and resilient, things we rely on like greenways, tree canopy, forever wild natural areas, waterfront access, community gardens and trails. And engaged and empowered volunteer events, stewardship opportunities, engaged partner groups to help advocate and support ongoing improvement in parks. And last but not least, special events and programs to activate parks and foster community. Next. So we took those elements and we created a tool that helps us see what each community across the 5 boroughs level of access is to those elements. We wanted to have data so that people could see what we have now, how well they're served now, and maybe how that compares to other communities and whether gaps exist. So the tool that we developed helped us see where people are underserved, where people are well served. And with that data, we were able to prioritize where park upgrades need to happen, where new investments need to be made in communities of high need. Next. So these are just some illustrations of the citywide analysis with that internal tool. Public restrooms, people think public restrooms, but if you're going out for a day at the park, you need a public restroom. If you're having a concert in the park, you need a public restroom. If the Friends of group at Tompkinsville want to have a stewardship day, having a public restroom can help support that. So public restrooms have multiple functions to help keep a park clean and safe. 73% of New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs can walk to one of our park restrooms within a 10-minute walk. The green areas show areas that are served, and orange show where there are gaps. The second analysis, sample analysis we have here, enrichment centers, our historic houses, our nature centers, our recreation centers. Only 34% of the population citywide has access to one of those enrichment community centers. More gaps throughout all 5 boroughs. So this type of analysis helped us identify where do we need to fill these holes. Next. We didn't want to just keep this data to ourselves. We want every single New Yorker to have access to it. So we built this public-facing tool that you all can use on your desktop or even on your mobile phone that helps you see for these 21 elements that contribute to a vital park system, how well is your community served? In a minute, I'll do a live demo on that, but just you see the 21 elements here: cooling features, public restrooms, street trees, waterfront access, whether you've had a recent capital project in your park in the last 5 years, if you have park enforcement patrol, if your park has a high condition score, if it's doing well. And we don't want to just hand over this data, although it's got useful applications for you as you set you do your community district statement of needs, or you set your capital priorities or your expense funding priorities. We want you to share your feedback. There's a share your feedback option on this as well. We want everyone to make use of that. You can download every single community across the city if you really want to do a deep dive in that, or you can look at New York State's disadvantaged communities. That's a designation that closely mirrors the city's environmental justice areas, or you can look at things like the gun violence prevention precincts that the mayoral task force identified. Next. You can drill down into the block level and see what you have for each of these amenities and where in the community you have it. So you'll be able to get a bird's eye view of where capital projects have happened, or where there's park enforcement patrol, or if there's a public restroom. Next. One feature of this that, and we'll send all of you your community board profiles, you can download just a snapshot of your community board for each of these Vital Parks elements. It lists the percent of the population within that community that has ready access and how that compares to the citywide average. So that's newer renovated, go back please. So for like newer renovated parks, this is community board 3. 46% of the population can get to a park that was newly renovated within a 10-minute walk versus citywide, which is 70%. So in that instance, maybe this community needs more capital investment, or it may be that the parks are further away than a 10-minute walk. Park condition scores here in this community board, 49% of the population can get to a park that's ranks high, 95 on the park condition score index, versus citywide, which is 69%. So it's a great way for New Yorkers and community leaders like yourselves to see what you have, see how that compares. And you can make a data-based argument for more resources if needed. Next. So the Vital Parks Explorer is on our website. And it, can you go back one? Yeah. And it gives you a profile of a community. You can drill down to block level. But if all you care about is an individual park, on our website, we're also enabling you to just get a snapshot on the park's vital signs. So here we've got Blue Heron Park. It's got a ranking of a park condition score of an 89. It's had recent capital investment, $2.1 million. Under green and resilient, we have 19 mapped trees. It's got 215 acres of forever wild area. Recent events are listed as one, and it's got engagement opportunities. So stewardship events, places for people to help improve the park should they want to. And before we jump into the demo, just some quick snapshots. Next. We did this analysis, and with all of our allocated funding, we were able to see where we're having an impact under each of these value pillars. So the $3.2 billion isn't everything we're doing. It's an initial investment that targets underserved areas and comparing community to community. So under clean and safe, I just want to highlight, better bathrooms. You've got the Louis Lopez modular restroom that went in here. We've got 8 new bathrooms planned for Staten Island and 1 reconstruction as part of that initiative. Let's Swim NYC is our $1 billion capital investment to help our aging pool infrastructure and build 2 new pools. We've got 6 projects in Staten Island, $21 million worth of investment. You see Lions Pool here. We have $3.6 million planned for Lions. Next. Under our green and resilient, are we doing engaged and empowered? I think we skipped over 1 slide. Can we go back 1? Under green and resilient, these are some of the strategic initiatives that we're doing. Growing wetlands, gaining resiliency. We've got 5 resiliency projects funded and planned in Staten Island, a $24.8 million investment. As part of growing green spaces, we're doing 8 acquisitions in Staten Island. Under expanding tree canopy, we're prioritizing the most heat vulnerable communities, primarily the Bronx and Brooklyn, for more tree planting because they have such little canopy. And then under growing greenways, we have $209 million planned and funded improvements for Staten Island. And lastly, next.
This is what we're doing on forestry initiatives.
Under engaged and empowered, many of you have probably heard of Let's Green NYC. Earlier this year, we set our target of reaching 500,000 New Yorkers. We've already exceeded that. Let's Play NYC, we're improving our aging recreation centers and adding new ones like the $92 million Mary Callie Dalton. We're also putting in $50 million to Ocean Breeze. And then we're building a citywide park network, connecting our grassroots groups to our conservancies and beyond. Next. So we launched Vital Parks for All, this framework, our vision, and our initial investment at the end of June. We've been meeting with each of the borough boards, and thank you today, Brooke and everyone, for hosting us. In the autumn, next month, we'll be going and doing Vital Parks town halls in each of the boroughs. We've got one with that the Borough President is co-hosting on October 24th in Staten Island at Borough Hall. And that'll be a chance for people to come hear directly from the Borough President and the Parks Commissioner about their vision for parks and for us to do a tool demo for empowering all Staten Islanders with access to this data to see what they have, and so if they want to advocate for more, they've got the data to do it. Next. So we aren't done. $3.2 billion sounds like a lot, but as I said, we have over 30,000 acres of parkland, and working with you all and community board and elected official leaders across the 5 boroughs, we want to collaboratively identify what needs to happen next so that our parks really can be celebrated and support all the needs of New Yorkers. We're gonna switch now to interactive, if that works. Quickly walk you through this. Let's see if it's gonna let me share my screen. Okay, Control Shift.
Would you like me to make you the presenter, Jim?
Oh, sure, that'd be great.
There you go.
Sorry, Brooke, I didn't know you had to do that. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the Vital Parks Explorer. You can find it at nyc.gov/vitalparks. It's where you can find how-to on My Parks Vital signs. You can read the Vital Parks for All Investing in Living Infrastructure Plan, and you can link up with this tool. So here it is. What would people like me to demo? New or renovated parks within each community board?
Public restrooms are a big thing.
Public restrooms. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to select public restrooms, and it tells us citywide, 70% of people live within a 10-minute walk to a public restroom operated by the Parks Department. When you go in, I'm getting feedback. Is anybody else? Can you hear me?
I
Yes?
can hear you. I
Yes, we
just
can
muted
now.
a few
Okay.
other participants. Give it a shot.
Okay. So if you go into Staten Island, it shows you that Community Board 1, only 33% of the population can walk to a Parks Department public restroom. If you go in even closer, you can see where those public restrooms are. Down to the block level, should you want to. Which parks have them, which don't. So if you're a community board and you're working on your community's future, you may say, oh, wow, we need another bathroom at the Snug Harbor Cultural Center, or Goodhue Park needs a restroom. Or you can say, this is great, but I know this particular restroom needs a renovation. But it's a way for you to get a sense of how your community is currently served and maybe where new amenities need to be added. Let's switch to parks with high condition scores. This is a new thing that Parks developed. We want people to see, like a restaurant grade, see how well their parks are doing. So we took all of our inspection data and we weighted things more heavily, like litter, or say play equipment or safety surface, so that you can get a more nuanced sense of how well your park is doing. So across the city, 69% of the population can get to a park that has a high condition score, 95 or above. In Community Board 2 in Staten Island, only it's actually better than the rest of the city. It's 73% of the population can get to a park that has a high condition score. And it's less in Community Board 3. You can then go into the closer level, see where the parks that are getting a 95 or above are located, the inspection areas. So it's a pretty great resource. We can look at Park Enforcement Patrol as well. You can see which parks through the circles have Park Enforcement Patrol. We're defining Park Enforcement Patrol right now as at least 30 minutes of patrol daily. Citywide, only 48% of the population has access to a park that has that level of Park Enforcement Patrol. And then when we go out, let's look at a different community board. We looked at community board 3, let's look at community board 2. You can see which parks have Park Enforcement Patrol that it's meeting the target, and which don't currently have patrol. So it beats the citywide average of 48%. So again, this is a tool that helps you see in full what your community has access to, how well it's served, or if gaps exist. It can help with prioritizing your capital and expense needs. And it's just another great data point for using when doing your statement, your district statement of needs. If you want to compare your community across community boards across all 5 boroughs, you can download that here, download all community data. If you want to see the disadvantaged communities, when you sort of zoom in, you can see where those are. And one of the reasons we included that lens is because New York City is sort of pivoting away from the environmental justice designation. New York disadvantaged communities essentially mimics the EJ communities, but having the New York State designation makes these areas qualify for certain grants, makes them more eligible for certain grants. So we're including that for our planning purposes. We know you can use this for your advocacy and for your planning, but we are also using it as we pursue federal, state, private foundation grants for showing need. Any other visuals you want me to pull up, or should we switch to questions?
That's a great layer cake of all the maps. I know that's a lot of work to put together, but it looks easily navigable and really informative.
I'm very proud to say this was done entirely with Parks in-house resources. So many different divisions contributed to these data sets, and our digital media and our innovation and performance management teams built this, which is great.
Well done.
Hi, this is Community Board 1. Community Board 2's area, but I happen to do my workout every night on the Father Capodanno Boardwalk. Is there a plan moving forward to fix the boards and to add security? There's never security on that boardwalk.
So it's not in this initial investment, but that doesn't preclude it from being added.
Okay, because I see a big line about that board.
Yeah,
the
Joan,
board.
I'll jump in also. So yes, we're very well aware of, the degrading condition of the boardwalk. And I know it's a conversation that the BP and I have been having. we're frustrated because we're waiting for the Army Corps line of protection to come through and rebuild, and that's taken a lot longer. So we are trying to figure out if there are any ways to do some short term. We've been making repairs to the boards, and I don't want to take over too much time in this meeting, and I'm happy to speak to you separately. It's really there's nothing left that is substantial enough to nail the boards into. And although we've made those tremendous repairs since Sandy, it's definitely beyond its useful life. So that's, but that's not to say that we're not trying to figure out what we can do in the interim. And as far as PEP, I would say I think you're absolutely correct. We do not have enough PEP officers. I think, Jen, showed us, and she said we talk about 30 minutes. I think the challenge for us is that it's a large span. We do have PEP officers that are on the beach during the day, typically from 10 to 6, but it's just more of a mobile patrol in the evening. So, but I think without saying too much, I think, we are very, very fortunate on Staten Island that NYPD supports us and also supplements us. But it's never enough. And we hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Hi,
Jerry?
good afternoon. Well, I think Jerry is
Jerry?
muted, actually.
Jerry, can you unmute?
I'm trying.
There you go. We got you.
Will this presentation that we just saw be sent to the district managers of Community Board 3?
Yes, we'll have it in the minutes for you this week.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Jen or Joe, can I reach out to you to get a PDF of the slide deck?
Sure.
Great.
And Brooke, if helpful, we have PDF versions of the community board profiles for each of the three
Oh,
community
fantastic.
boards.
Okay, great. Thank you.
There was another question.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the presentation. My question is, I think I see on the website, like there's an area that includes like baseball fields and basketball courts, but I'm curious if on this like GIS like section over here, if something like that maybe could be added, like where the recreation centers or the playgrounds are listed.
Yes, we have the athletic fields on the Vital Parks Explorer. It's one of the, want me to see if I can get back to that screen? You can see how close they are to you. Not this one.
And we list them as athletic fields where maybe the common name is softball field or baseball field, Brianna.
It also includes sports courts, so you can see how well served you are. Let's see, I'm on it now. Let's see if I can share my screen.
Okay, cool. I might have missed it on my end as well,
Okay.
but sometimes it's cool. Like for example, when you're just trying to find a tennis court or a basketball court, and you're able to just kind of easily pull it up here.
That you can do on certain parts of the park's website. This is not meant to sort of be a what's the nearest one to me, although you can. It's a but if you want to see sort of the overall universe and their listing and their address, there's part of Park's website that does that.
I gotcha.
Okay, so I just share Control Shift U. No, it's not working. Okay, it's not letting me share, or I'd show you.
Well, that's rude. Let me see what I can do about that.
It could be me.
Oh, make you the host. There you go.
Yeah, it's not. I'm not select. Not doing it, right? I see it, but it's not showing up as sharing, so let's see. Sorry.
Yes, so I have a question, I can also email. Thank you so much for sending this one. Thank you so much for sending the spreadsheet with the
Sure.
responses.
If you'd like, Jen, send me a link to it. I'll put that in the minutes as well.
Should Cruz visit all?
I'm sorry, say it again.
If you'd like, send me a link and I'll put
Oh,
that in the
okay.
minutes.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. Does anyone
So
else have any other questions?
Yes,
Jerry?
okay.
Jerry, can you hear?
Yes, yes. What did you ask? I'm sorry.
You said you had a question?
No, my question is answered. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Anyone else?
Fred, can you hear me?
Okay, that's fine, I just needed to make sure.
I think Fred's trying to ask a question, but we can't hear him.
That's fine.
Fred?
Thank you.
How about now? Can you hear me?
There we go.
Back to the repairs of the boardwalk that Ms. Cusack brought up. I understand you're waiting for the Army Corps of Engineers. But when and if this work starts, will you be building the boardwalk in the white?
Can't hear anything he's saying.
Yeah, Fred, I'm sorry, it broke out a little bit. You were asking about the Army Corps work on the seawall?
Yeah, right down by the.
Fred, I'm awfully sorry. Maybe if you'd like to type the question into the chat.
Okay, all right. That's okay. I'll get in touch with Parks. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Fred. Anyone else with questions? And Parks team, thank you very much for a vital presentation this afternoon.
Thank you so much
Appreciate
for
the
the
details and what you
opportunity.
did.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brooke. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Thank you
bet.
so much. Really
Have a great
appreciate
Wednesday.
it. You too.
Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Thanks. All right. Bye.
Bye now. Okay, next up we have Emily Sweet, who's with the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities.
Yeah, hi, I'm Emily Sweet from the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. I'm the General Counsel here. Brooke, can you share the PowerPoint?
How's that?
Thank you. Yeah, terrific. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm here to make a presentation about Local Law 12 5-year accessibility plans, which are required for every community board. Next slide. So Local Law 12 was enacted by the City Council last year. It requires every agency, and the law department has determined that each community board is an agency within the meaning of the law, to develop a 5-year accessibility plan. And on this slide, you'll see the requirements for the accessibility plans. We're getting to the community boards a little late in the game here. About 60 city agencies who knew there were that many city agencies have already published their 5-year accessibility plans. But we, oh, sorry, I got a little feedback there. So we recently learned that the community boards were considered agencies under the plan. So we're reaching out to all the community boards now to inform you about this requirement and provide support for this process. So the 5-year accessibility plans have to include the steps that agencies, or here the boards, will be taking over the next 5 years to ensure that your workplace services, programs, and activities are accessible to and accommodating and inclusive of persons with disabilities. And I hadn't thought before this meeting to look up how many people with disabilities there are in Staten Island. It's roughly the same as proportion as the rest of the city, about 10%, according to the most recent American Community Surveys. It's about 10% of the population, so it's significant. Those are the people who have self-identified as having a disability in the American Community Survey. So in addition, there should be information regarding ongoing projects and projects planned over the next 5 years. So what you're doing now and what you plan to do. Projects related to improving, and I'll go over the different aspects of accessibility a little later, physical, digital, and programmatic access and effective communications for people with disabilities. Next slide. Okay. So this is the timeline that we've set for the community boards. A lot of the statutory timelines have actually already passed. But as I said, the community boards are coming to this a little late in the game. So we have set these timelines, which are roughly a year after the statutory ones. And we'll explain this to the city council in case they ask their compliance unit. So but this is roughly the same timeline that was provided to other city agencies about a year ago. So the first step is to post accessibility information on your website, on the community board's website. And we're setting a deadline of October 1, 2024 to do that. And we will be providing a template specific to community boards to help you with that. So it's really not a big deal. You just need to find a place that makes sense on your website to post the accessibility information and using the template that we'll provide. And I'll go through each of these steps in a little more detail later. Then by the end of the calendar year, you'll post a proposed plan and circulate it for public comments. So part of this process is to get comments from the public. Then the final plan, actually, after you've had your public comment period, will be to finalize the plan based perhaps on public comments if you receive those, and post a final 5-year accessibility plan, that meaning post it on your website by April 15, 2025. And then after that, you don't just tuck it away and forget about it. There's implementation, and you'll be required every year starting in May 2026 to report on the progress of implementation. And so the requirement is to post a progress report every May 1. Then there's also a requirement to update the 5-year accessibility plan every 3 years and to put you on the same timeline as other agencies. And this is where you actually will be in compliance with the statute. It's May 1, 2027, and every 3 years thereafter. Next slide. Okay. So again, these are the next steps for community boards: posting your accessibility info on your website, conduct self-evaluations. This is how you get to what is going to go in your plan, and we'll talk about that. You conduct a self-evaluation to determine where your weaknesses are or room for improvement. And then step 3 is to publish the proposed plan for public comment. Next slide. Okay. So the accessibility information, we can sort of, we'll be providing the template, but basically it will have a general non-discrimination statement. It will have a grievance procedure, and we'll have a recommendation for how that will be. And this would be a grievance procedure for someone who feels that they, haven't been provided access. So you'll have a chance to work that out. A website accessibility statement, which some of you may not be familiar with, but of course, so much more information and services are available now online. So it's information about your efforts to make your website more accessible and what someone can do. For example, someone who is blind or low vision, if you have a website where there's a glitch and it's not accessible for someone using a screen reader to navigate the website, what they can do to get assistance. And then a statement, and this is required by the local law, a statement that the community board is developing a 5-year accessibility plan. Next slide. Okay. Step 2 is conduct self-evaluations, and we do have self-evaluation tools that we'll be distributing to the district managers via the Staten Island Borough President's Office. And we have developed the self-evaluation tools listed here, and we're going to go through a little bit about what each of these is: digital accessibility, workplace inclusion, effective communication, physical accessibility, program accessibility, and then we have kind of a general non-discrimination miscellaneous. So there's a tool, it's like a checklist. You'll go through all that. You'll say, yes, we do this. No, we don't do this yet, but this is, you can develop a plan to come into compliance with it. And so these tools kind of outline best practices, and it's a tool for determining how compliant, not just compliant with the law, but how inclusive your community board is to people with disabilities. Next slide. Okay, and then step 3, making it sound so simple, is drafting the proposed plan. And we have a template for this. The template has required and recommended headings, so it's not, we don't want to be overly, we want to be helpful, but we don't want to be overly prescriptive. So we actually do have a website where the 60 or so agencies that have already posted plans are. So you can look through those, and you'll see that they generally follow the format we've provided, but some of them stray from that format a bit, and that's fine as long as it hits all the areas that are required under the law. So the proposed plan should be based on barriers or access issues, pain points that you've identified during your self-evaluation process. However, and this might be more relevant for the larger agencies that we've already worked with, but it could be relevant to the community boards. The plan in some instances can include a statement that your agency is continuing to conduct self-evaluations in one or more of the areas set forth in the local law. So we had some agencies, given the tight timeline, that weren't able to complete their self-evaluations, and that's fine. It's an ongoing process. Community boards, I'm not that familiar with community boards, but my understanding is, they're smaller, so you also might have less resources, but you're not engaged as many activities, so you should be able to complete your self-evaluations within the time provided, but if you're not, you can certainly include a statement like that. Okay, next slide. Okay, now here are the 5 areas, and this is according to the statute, that must be included in the plan in case people aren't familiar with each of these. And the reason I've put these in this order is because we here at MOPD, as part of this process, have started to referring to these with the acronym DWEP, which some people find helpful. It's DWEP with 2 P's. And so that's the only reason it's in this particular order. So the first aspect of accessibility that has to be addressed is digital accessibility. And that's basically, is your website and are your electronic documents accessible for people with disabilities. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that concept, the typical example, although there's many other examples, is, is your website accessible to someone who's blind or low vision and uses a screen reader? And we're going to do some trainings for the community boards, so they'll become more and more familiar with these concepts. And we have a great digital accessibility person who wasn't able to make it today. His name is Arthur Jacobs, and he's blind himself. And he, at the beginning of his trainings, he demonstrates like what it's like to navigate a website with a screen reader. And it's really helpful for people to see that and learn about what that's like. And so then he shows an accessible website where that he can navigate easily, and then an inaccessible website where there's a lot of gobbledygook and he might go to the website and have no idea what's going on. Another aspect is workplace inclusion, which was a big aspect of many of the larger agencies that did this. I understand that community boards, you don't do a lot of hiring, you only have 2 staff members. You'll still have to include how your workplace is inclusive. Effective communication. So that would be, does your agency have policies and practices in place to ensure that, for example, auxiliary aids and services like American Sign Language interpretation or captioning is provided for people who need that, right? So, or large print or Braille documents for people who might need that. And so the goal is to ensure that when you're communicating with everyone, but with people with disabilities, it's as if when you're communicating with people with disabilities, it's as effective as communication for people who don't have disabilities. And there's tools to help you do that. And we also provide trainings on that. The next aspect of accessibility is probably the one that comes to most people's minds as the first aspect of accessibility, which is physical accessibility. When you if you're holding an in-person meeting, is it in an accessible space that's accessible to someone who uses a wheelchair? That would be the most basic example. And then the final one is programmatic access. And we've treated that kind of like a catch-all. So it could be, it's just, are your services, programs, or activities readily accessible to and usable by individuals with disabilities? And when you use the self-evaluation tool, you'll see that a lot of these categories sort of overlap. So, but you can also, in this area of the plan, you could also talk about if you're doing something, if you're taking affirmative steps to include people with disabilities, does your community board, I understand some community boards might actually have like committees focusing on people with disabilities or accessibility within your community. So what kind of affirmative steps might you be taking that go beyond just compliance, that might be furthering the interests of people with disabilities in the city? Next slide. Okay, so I mentioned that we will be providing trainings for the community boards, and we'll be communicating through the borough president's offices regarding those trainings. But in addition, as I mentioned, we'll have the accessibility page template. We'll provide that. We'll provide the self-evaluation tools. We'll provide the plan template to follow. There's also a local law 12 intranet site with a lot of resources, but that's only for those on the city network. Are there community, I think some community boards are on the city's intranet, but I'm not sure if all of them are. But we have that resource. The U.S. Department of Justice has a website, ada.gov, that has a lot of helpful resources. And there's also something called the ADA National Network, which is federally funded, that has some great materials there. ADATA.org, which I think stands for ADA Technical Assistance. That's my guess. And then Arthur, who I mentioned from our office, our digital accessibility person, has put together some digital accessibility guides, which are on our public-facing website. But this is in addition to trainings that we'll be providing as well. Next slide. Okay. And then we are always here, maybe not always, but we're here as much as we can be to answer any questions that people may have. So for general matters, we have a mailbox that's monitored by me and by my colleague, Crystal Rivera. And here are our phone numbers and this joint email box we have. Digital accessibility matters. Arthur Jacobs is available. We also have a physical accessibility expert, James Irvin, and the Staten Island Borough President's Office has told us that Stephen Caracappa can also act as a resource for the Staten Island community boards. So there'll be lots more information to come. This was really just wanted to kind of introduce the district managers to this requirement and give an overview of this. But if anyone has any questions, let me know.
Hi, Joan Cusack, Community Board 1, Staten Island.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, what's the due date of this? I saw it pass somewhere along.
So it's December, the end of the calendar year, December 31, 2024.
Okay. Now, you said you're not familiar with community boards and you don't think that there's much stuff going on a regular basis. I need to tell you that you're right. Staten Island probably has the least amount of help. 2 employees, has only 1.5 employees. So this is going to be quite a feat for us. And we don't have the budget to hire a lot more. Let me finish. And the intranet site, no, as far as I know, we're not on it at Community Board 1, and I'm not sure about the other 2.
Okay.
We're not connected to the city intranet. I come from Department of Social Services about a year and a half ago. I had about 100 employees under me. And I had
Right.
plenty of people to help do stuff like this. This is going to be quite an issue without a lot of help from your end, because we are now going into the new season of meetings. There are many nights I don't get home till 10 o'clock at night, doing all of these meetings plus the full day of work. And I have only one other person in the office who can help me do this, and she's setting up meetings and doing minutes and taking care of the board while I'm busy attending all of these meetings. So I just need to tell you a little bit of the structure of community boards and the challenges of community boards. I've worked in many city agencies, from federal, state, and the city.
Okay.
3
Thank
mayors,
you for-
3 governors, and this is something, and we've done many of these kind of reports, but I always
Yep.
had an agency that had a lot of people working there, so.
Yep. Okay, so thank you for that background. I was familiar enough to know that it is different from most other city agencies that we've dealt with, although there were some agencies. I think there was we deal with some boards. I think there was a couple of 6-person agencies who had kind of had the same reaction when the process started. And then they were kind of relieved to learn that it wasn't as bad as they thought, right? And I actually think that you guys are in a better position than some of these smaller agencies we were working with about a year ago, because you have the benefit of the plans. This was new to us too, right? This is a new requirement. Now you have the benefit, and I'll share the link for we have all the other agencies' plans posted on the website. So you can look at some of what, obviously it's not going to be exactly the same, but you'll see what the smaller agencies have done.
Well, seeing, that's important. That, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But seeing what the other agencies have done is a great way to help us do ours. To see what they've worked, the kind of answers that they have and the things that they do. I mean, I'm sure the larger community boards have a bit more to say and do, because the smaller ones really don't have as much as far as that. But it's tedious. I can tell right now, because I've been in government a lot of years. I know the way this stuff works. But with the right help, can we get it done by December? Hopefully so, because this is
I think
season.
I think you'll be able to. I think you'll be able to, and I think there's 2 things going on here, right? One, admittedly, is, we don't want this to be a box checking exercise, but of course, every time there's a report due and there's a city council requirement or new requirement and a deadline, you have to check the boxes and you have to do what you have to do, right? But we don't want it to just be about that. So it may be that, while you're engaging in this box checking exercise, there's also things that you'll be learning, and that's what we hope. There's things you'll be learning and things you'll actually be doing to increase your own knowledge about accessibility, right? And you'll be doing that, and then you'll actually be making your programs and services more accessible as well. And hopefully those 2 projects will be aligned with each other, but I recognize they aren't always. And sometimes you just have the deadline and you got to get it done, right? But hopefully with the trainings and the resources we'll be providing, you can do both. You can get it done by the deadline, and you'll also be, learning all this and implementing all this, and it'll be a valuable. And I think a lot of the agencies that we did work with did feel like it was a very valuable exercise.
Oh, it's valuable.
We did get that feedback from people.
It is valuable. And working with all the other government agencies, at least I'll have a little bit of knowledge of the things that are required for all these accessibilities. I have a question on something else you said. You mentioned the public meetings. So now I'm thinking public meetings, I'm thinking you're talking about signers. The signers,
Oh, are you talking about, American Sign Language interpreters?
Yes. So are they, can they be provided from your agency then? Because we don't really have.
No, unfortunately not. And there's not a requirement that you provide American Sign Language interpretation. Okay. There is a, recommendation that you do so, but really the only requirement is if it's on request. So you have to be prepared to do so. And most of the boards hopefully should be, like, we hope that if you got a request now from a deaf constituent that you wouldn't be, or maybe you would be, right? But we hope that you wouldn't be like scurrying to find out how to do that. But at least after this process, you won't be, right? So you have to just be prepared. that if someone requests an interpreter, you're not going to panic and you're going to know how to arrange for that. You're going to know the etiquette of dealing with a person who's deaf and dealing with interpreters after this process is over.
No, I'm sure most of us know that now. We're very
Yeah.
good. The 3 community boards are very good groups and very respectful.
Right.
Okay, so just letting you know that you'll be hearing from us, I'm sure. And it would be very helpful if you have if you would send this to all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
It'll be included in the minutes for you, Jen.
Thank you, Brooke. Yes, and, oh, Mary's there.
Someone has their hand raised, but I don't see a
Jerry?
name. So
I have a question.
sure.
Has someone from the mayor's office been in touch with the district manager on this issue over a period of time?
No, this meeting is our effort to reach out to the district managers. So we didn't realize that community boards were considered agencies under the law. And so when we learned that, we reached out, if you must know, we reached out to the Civic Engagement Commission. We said, what's the best way to reach out to the community boards? They told us to reach out to some people at the borough president's office. And then when we reached out to the borough president's office, they said, okay, you should do a presentation at every borough at these borough board meetings. For some of the other boroughs, it's their borough service cabinet meeting. So this is the first that some district managers are hearing about this. Most probably.
So just to continue, so this may sound like a very naive question. Do the district managers know anything about this?
So probably not. So this is the introduction. Are district managers on this call?
Well, I'm not a district manager. I'm just a member of the board.
Right. Okay.
But Joan,
Okay, no, I'm the only one.
And Joan is right. So this is our kind of one of our first steps for reaching out to the community boards to inform you guys of this requirement. So no, this is the very beginning of the process.
Yeah, no, I'm the only district manager here, so they need to be, yeah, that's my concern.
Besides send
Oh, we've lost audio.
Jerry? Could you repeat the question, please, Jerry?
Besides the slide presentation, which was very thorough, you're going to be sending that to them. But besides that, will someone be calling up the district manager and saying X, Y, and Z? You have time frames here that don't seem to have extensions to them.
So we're going to be relying on the borough president's offices. That's what we were told would be the best thing to do. We don't have like a list of all the district managers, right? So we're relying on the borough president's office to communicate this with the district managers. And yes, we do have a plan. We have the self-evaluation tools, but we're going to be relying on the borough president's offices to share that information out with the district managers.
Okay, because people are going to have a lot of questions and people are going to,
I'm sure they will. Yep. We welcome them. Yep.
What's the downside? What's the punitive action? What's the negative when they don't meet timeframes?
Excuse me, what's the?
What?
Oh, what are the consequences? That's a good question. So there's no like penalty under the. Is that what you're saying if they don't meet the deadline?
Yes.
Yeah. So no, there's actually what they said was there is something written into the law which is pretty unusual where they said that we're supposed to post. We're actually the council wants us to MOPD to post a list of agencies that haven't complied by the deadline. Now, you know, the deadline is already passed because we didn't realize that the community boards were supposed to do this. So we'll explain that to the city council, right? So we're not going to be posting that. And we're not in the business of doing a gotcha or anything like that. So no, there's no actual penalties. But we hope that it's something that everyone will do and take seriously. And we do know that almost all the other city agencies, despite the lack of any kind of penalty like that, did do their best. There's some city agencies which still haven't, done it. I don't know if the city council will then do something else, but no, there's no penalty written into the statute other than kind of a shame penalty.
because the scope, the broad scope of the work that a community board does is amazing.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you. Sorry.
The chair of two committees, the Cannabis Committee and the State Liquor Authority Committee. We have
Okay.
dozens and dozens of applications in all of these areas, like dealing with it to comply with all of this is so time consuming. That's my concern. Not the difficulty of what you're asking for, but the time consuming nature of it in light of the other work that has to be done.
Okay, so we'll definitely try to be mindful of that. And we don't want this to be, we want to make it simple for you, but we also don't want it to be we don't want it to be a make work exercise, right? And we want it, but we also want it to be meaningful. So, we'll do whatever it takes to help you guys or to help the community boards meet the deadline at the same time that we're providing meaningful support that will help the boards actually become more acceptable. And that doesn't mean doing everything by December 31. It means checking the boxes and doing this report, right? Doing this plan. It's just a plan by December 31. It doesn't mean it's a 5-year plan. So it doesn't mean that you have to have implemented everything by December 31.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Emily, thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Okay. And,
Okay.
Our contact information is in the PowerPoint, so reach out anytime.
I'll also send you district manager names and emails too, just for your records, Emily.
Thank you, Brooke.
All right. Thank you so very much. Appreciate you spending time with us this afternoon. All right. With everything else that we have for our borough board, it's just the usual finishing up housekeeping items. There was no correspondence for this month, nor was there any old business. New business, I believe, just for coming up next month's first Wednesday is Rosh Hashanah. So my understanding is we will look to reschedule the borough board meeting, possibly for the following Wednesday. But as soon as I have confirmation of that, I will let you all know.
Thank you.
Also, looking to get the minutes out for you this week with both presentations. That was quite a lot of information to take in. With that being said, any other new business for anyone? Could I entertain a motion to adjourn today's meeting, please?
Sure.
Jerry? And could I get a second too, please? Elena? You are my hero. Thank you so very much. Happy September, everyone. Have a wonderful month. Enjoy this gorgeous weather and look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you. Take care now.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.